anybody who is watching on our website might have had access. I started the wrong broadcast, so that is why I'm restarting. For those on Facebook, you were no wiser to that. So, yeah, we'll give it a minute to start posting it on Facebook, and then we'll get started. Any questions that you have, please text me, 419 356 1127. That's 419 356 1127, and I will try to answer any questions. It can be about anything: Bible, life, parenting, marriage, you name it. Feel free to ask a question. If I have an answer, I'm willing to. Just a chance to have a conversation with you all today. As always, not sure how long we'll go, just depending on how much interactions we have with people before I say enough is enough. So, yeah. So we are officially on now. At least with that, and we'll see a second on Facebook. So, yep. All right, so we are on Facebook. Hi, Janice. How are you? I hope you're having a good day. Hope you're getting a chance to get outside and enjoy this beautiful weather that we have. I'm hoping to get a run in at some point today. It looks nice. Just love being outside during this whatever you want to call it, quarantine, coronavirus, pandemic, or whatever you want to call it. So I'll give it a minute, get people a chance to get on. Hi, Brooke. Good to see you. I will. I'm going to do a couple of things, kind of do a little bit of a devotional, then ask some questions for you all, and then we can start answering a few questions. I only had a few that were given to me prior to this time, so yeah. We'll get started in a second. Hi, Matt French. Good to see you. Tell Alex I said hi. Ask him about his mistake he made yesterday. Tell him about it. Ask about his mistake. Technical mistake. All right. Psalm 9, just some devotional thoughts for us. It says, I will give thanks to the Lord with my whole heart. I will recount all of your wonderful deeds. I will be glad and exult in you. I will sing praises to your name, O Most High. And I think it's a reminder to us to be a people who are acknowledging all the ways, all the wonderful deeds that God has done. Now, there's the spiritual needs and deeds that He has done and met in Christ. Again, the big picture. So we thank God. A few weeks back, we were just celebrating the resurrection of Christ and the hope we have in an empty tomb, that we can be saved and redeemed because of Jesus. So we're to recall and recount those wonderful deeds that He has done, that He has accomplished. But we're also called, I think, on a smaller level, to recall His wonderful deeds in just our day-to-day life. My one friend coined the term glimpses of grace. And that's probably something that we should develop a better habit of, where we acknowledge, where we thank God for all the things. That was a shout out to Sean Carpenter, the glimpses of grace, that we should do. So one of the things I'd like you to do via here is give me some examples of some ways. Give me some examples, some ways that you are. Is it still recording? Okay. Give me some examples of ways that you've seen God at work during this pandemic. give me some examples of how God has been at work in and through this situation. Maybe it's blessings you have seen in God providing, where you didn't think you would have anything to be provided, relationship opportunities. What are ways that you personally have seen God at work during this pandemic in your life? So if you are on right now watching, I want to hear some responses from you, some ways you've seen God at work through the current pandemic. Come on, give me something. I need to see some examples. I know for us, it's causing us to reevaluate how we spend our time in a good way. It's been it's been a challenge. I would say it even exposed idols in my life, things that I probably have too unhealthy of an obsession on. Sports, for example, it's been driving me batty not having live sports to watch, and it showed just how much of a pull they have. So it's been good stripping away a lot of the distractions in my life. It's also been a blessing to have all the kids at home, even though it makes it difficult to do work when the kids are around. So bouncing between prioritizing when I'm with the kids and when I'm pastoring and caring for people from afar, but it's been good. So it's also just been a real blessing to see God provide even for our church. That has been awesome to see at a time when people are unemployed and laid off, and that God continues to care for the church that I pastor and continues to meet our needs. So that's been awesome to see. Romans 8:28, God working all things for the good. So we have a praise with Brooke. We have a relative who is interested in learning about Jesus, who's never had the desire. She's able to actually have a Bible now, so that's great. I mean, those are examples. I think one of the blessings that we've seen is this is creating fertile soil for spiritual conversations. When you start worrying about getting a sickness that could kill you, it starts making you think about what would happen if I was to die. Or people who are getting sick, and even some people who maybe have passed as a result of the virus. It does create a conversation that maybe didn't exist a few months ago. So that's a great example, Brooke. How about anybody else? Anybody else? Spend more time with family and care for them in a way I used to be able to do before getting a job. It's true. I mean, we yesterday we spent time. We did a bike ride after church, so went and rode our bike. We don't live far from a school that's got a really big parking lot, so we went over and sometimes having a large family, not all the kids are on agreement in how we're going to spend our time, but we do it anyhow. So it was funny. Those are those moments I wish I would have took a picture. My one child sat there and pouted because it wasn't exactly what he wanted to do while the rest of us rode around this parking lot. Those are ones I wish I would have taken a picture of and brought back up when they decide to get married and just point out these moments, but I did not do that. So yeah, time with family, creative time. We're trying to get our kids to do more, create more hobbies, learn stuff. We have some instruments in our house. My wife and I are neither musically gifted, but we have a piano and a guitar, and some of them have done that, are trying to learn that. So, opportunity to be creative. Yeah, just looking for hope that lasts when it's uncertain. More Sabbath, solitude, and quiet. Yeah, I think that's good. And that'll actually, at least, great question or great comment, because that's going to be one Bible question we're going to ask. If you had the opportunity to listen to my sermon yesterday on Colossians chapter 2, One of the things we addressed were these substitutes for Jesus, and one particular false teaching that had entered into the Colossians was the idea that self-restraint, self-denial, doing without, kind of beating your body physically, emotionally, was a way that they would earn favor with God. And we saw that that's a false substitute for Jesus. It doesn't make us more spiritual. It doesn't make us more right with God. It is it's a lie. With that said, though, I had a question after the sermon that was messaged to me. So what are your thoughts on monasticism, basically? Is it okay if the heart is right? So how do we do that? So back with Lisa's comment, more Sabbath, solitude, quiet. I think it is always good, a couple of things. God desires us to crave greater intimacy with him. Philippians 3, Paul talks about, I consider everything rubbish compared to knowing Jesus. I want to know him. I want to know the power of his resurrection. I want to become like him. So there's this craving within Paul, and there should be a craving within each of us that we want to really get to know our Savior and know Jesus. And one of the great ways that it happens is through solitude, is through quiet. Jesus himself in his relationship with his Father would go away at times during his earthly ministry to quiet, desolate places, sometimes in the morning or late at night when it was just him and his Father, and obviously the Spirit in communion and in prayer with one another. So it's good to desire intimacy. One of the great ways that we do that is through rest, through solitude, through time alone with the Lord. I think God desires that from us, to take a walk, to do a prayer walk, to maybe go away at times to spend reading the Bible. But here's the danger with this monastic way of life. One, it tends to be focused on, by doing this, by making these substitutions, it's making us right with God. The example I gave was of the man who has been spending the last 20 years on this pillar, this large rock pillar. At the top, he's got this like recluse cottage, and he's been there, and it's basically like a one-room building. And he's been spending 20 years there away from people for the most part. And so the idea that somehow God is more pleased because we've done that, I think, is extremely dangerous to think through. So yeah, that would be a concern as far as the motive. A couple other things, though, even though it's good to desire intimacy with Jesus, is what about community? Because here's my problem with the monastic movement is, even if there's a group of monks at a particular place, they tend to be relatively separated from one another for the most part because of the solitude component. And we did a series a while back going through the New Testament, and we looked at the one another's. We're to love one another, exhort one another, encourage one another. There is a lot of one anothering in the New Testament. And how are you going to do one another's? How are you going to do one another's when you don't have another? So it's a community project, the group, the gospel. So we need to be people who are in community with each other, who are gathering corporately. So for times and seasons, durations that maybe go away even for a day or two to be alone with the Lord, those can be good things. Those can be spiritually beneficial. But the idea that you would constantly be with withdrawal from people is, I would say, not biblically based. And then there's the third component of it, is this evangelism. We looked at the end of Matthew 28, the Great Commission to go to make disciples of all nations. How are you going to make disciples of all nations if you're not going, if you're not being a witness, as Acts 1:8 says, to the ends of the earth. So yeah, back to the initial question on monasticism, I would say most of the time I would have great concerns. However, it is good to desire intimacy, solitude, rest. Those things are really good. Yeah, and I think one of the things we struggle with, somebody commented on the Sabbath aspect and solitude, is that if we thrive on busyness, it's time for us to have rest. And it's true. It's hard. We don't know. My kids are currently we're toning down video games and TV and having this quiet time. It's a shock to their system, and then it's convicting to me as a parent that my kids are so shocked by solitude and quiet and not having the distraction and the no brain aspect of entertainment to kind of pick up the time. So, yeah, thriving on busyness. What I keep thinking about through all of this, though, is I'm hoping and I'm praying that some of the good habits that we develop, that we're able to return to them, that we're able to not return to the bad habits, but keep them. Because what's going to happen when we all go back to regular work? What's going to happen when life is back to normal? How are we going to glean and bring with us these new disciplines? What happens when everybody's working again and kids have sports and other activities and we're doing other stuff? Are we going to miss out on the family time? Because I believe God's not only giving us this as an opportunity graciously to be a part of, I think he wants us to develop good disciplines from this. And so, any ideas on that? As far as what are you going to take from this season of quarantine into the future, and how are you going to incorporate it back into everyday life when restrictions are removed and we are back to the grind of real life? Danny Campbell, one of my favorite people from college. So good to see you. Thanks for the encouraging word. It's been a long time. You should reach out sometime. Maybe we can talk on the phone. All right. Any questions? That was one of the only questions. I have another question, but I don't know if I want to spend as much time right now on it. Something you can look at later. I'll whet your appetite on it, and then maybe we'll return that at a different time. There's a story of Jephthah. He is in Judges chapter 11. And the question is, he's in Judges 11, but he's also in Hebrews 11. Hebrews 11 is the wall of faith. It's all these amazing men of God, and Jephthah is thrown into the loop. And the question is, why is he in that group? Because when you read Judges 11, it appears that he ended up sacrificing his daughter. And why would somebody who sacrificed his daughter be in the wall of faith in Hebrews 11? So that was the question. One possible reason is we're misreading Judges 11, and what he actually did was offered up his daughter to a life of devotion to the Lord, which would mean she would not be married, not have children, because there's a great emphasis on her virginity and not having kids in the chapter, rather than that he maybe sacrificed her. The confusion lies in this language that he offered her up as a offering, as a burnt offering. But then Romans 12 talks about us offering up our bodies as living sacrifices. So it's not always a one-to-one. The offering is literal. So there's some possibility that he didn't actually murder his daughter. He didn't sacrifice her. I did preached on this years ago, and I think I went with the idea, interpretation wise, that he did do that. But then as I've studied further recently, even today, I read an article on it. It made me think through. Maybe I wasn't totally. Maybe there's possibility that that's not what happened. So, and that would help better explain why he's in Hebrews 11. But yeah, kind of whet your appetite. If you want to look into it further, I would study Judges 11, and maybe we'll revisit that. All right, so prior to this quarantine, we set aside every other Sunday evening as family time. So I'm assuming you're going to hope to carry that on moving forward. Also, taking time to value relationships with more in-depth conversations, especially with loved ones. Yeah, that's probably my big concern. Is just it's so easy to get distracted, and this has given us a great opportunity to kind of hit the reboot. If you like a computer, you're rebooting the computer and kind of cleaning off the hard drive and maybe get it functioning and running a little bit better. And I know in my own life, there's just, I would say the one personal practice I would like to develop and grow more in is this my devotional life. I know you probably would be surprised, but it's really easy to do the work of God and neglect your own soul spiritually. You get so caught up. So, I mean, every day I'm spending time in the Bible more than most people, simply because I'm preparing sermons, preparing Bible studies, one-on-one Bible reading, all that. So I spend a lot of time in God's Word, but that often comes down to a feeling like I'm doing it for work. And it's easy to neglect just me and Jesus, me spending time reading the Bible for my own soul, my own benefit, spending time in prayer and in reflection. And that's one of those practices that I've been able to improve on during this quarantine and really prioritizing. And I'm hoping that I can keep it going on as I move forward. It's just making much of Jesus. Because that's really, at the end of the day, only thing that we have is Christ. That all these things that we treasure in this world, physical possessions, popularity, approval, all of those things, they don't matter at the end of the day. If God was to strip all of those away, having Jesus would be what matters the most. So I'm learning more and more of that during the quarantine. Does anybody have any questions? Any questions, comments? For those of you who just maybe joined, I was asking whether, like, what specifically are some ways, some glimpses of God's grace in your life? Some ways that you have seen God at work during this particular season? Anything? Any praises, any ways? And a couple of you shared some really good stuff, which is awesome. Anyways, I will give you all about a minute. And if I don't get any, I think we're going to end up wrapping up our time a little bit earlier today. It's a beautiful day. To be honest, most of us shouldn't be on Facebook right now. We should, if we're not working, get outside and enjoy this creation. So the countdown is on. Any other questions, comments, anything you want to interact with? Hi, Nicole. I think I saw kids running today when I drove by your house. So they were running fast. They had already started the enjoying of the weather earlier on than me. So yeah, any specific ways, before I let you go, any specific ways that you've seen a God at work during this current pandemic? Maybe through providing, maybe just through opportunities to spend time with your family, times to really work on your heart. Anything? Dun, 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 dun. Well, I am not getting any comments or questions. So Do, 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 do. Give it a sec. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to wrap up our time for today. Just pray that you guys have a good, not just day, but a good week. Make much of Jesus. Try to set aside time each day this week to read his word, to pray. If you have any questions or comments on how to study the Bible, please message me, and I would love to help you and to point you in the right direction. And yeah, so praying for you all, and have a great week, and God bless.